following that country's deadliest day since the uprising to oust the dictator Hosni Mubarak. Let me quickly run through who my guests are tonight. Marie-Ange Barbory is an activist with Voices of Egypt. She was supportive of the move to remove Mohamed Morsi on the 3rd of July. On the other side, Moayed Harb, also an Egyptian activist who supported and still does back Mohamed Morsi. Nice. Ali Fatimi is an economist. He's here to tell us about how the economic situation is affecting things. We've got Omar Ashur from the University of Exeter and Mona Makram Abaid as well at the American University of Cairo. She once worked for Mohamed Morsi before also switching sides. Moayed, perhaps you'd like to pick up on the point that Marie-Ange, your fellow Egyptian, was making before the break. She was saying that it's not enough just to win the election. It's not enough just to get the most votes. That's just the beginning. Democracy is about negotiating and compromise.
Democracy is about majority.
It's
about majority.
Well, you've clearly lost the majority in the last days.
Yes, if we did lose this majority, I think the ballot would be easily from your side, but it's not the case. That's why. And first of all,
the referendum has been exposed twice to Morsi, and he refused
to add one point to Madame Ebed about a compromise. That's completely false. Why? Firstly, we don't kidnap a president and then call for democracy. We don't close up channels. We don't change the constitution by people who are chosen, not elected, and then ask for a compromise. It's impossible. You're like hurting, you're like killing the people in Rabaa, the people who are supporting them, and then you ask for compromise. That's not, and killing by live ammunition, that's never the international law. The international law. If we do accept a coup, okay, the military has a standard to respect. This standard asks the military to use false ammunition. This. How do we call it?
Okay, should we put that point to Mona in Cairo? Mona Makram Ebaid, if you'd like to respond to that. Moayed Harb has a point, doesn't he? I mean, you can't kidnap their president. Nobody sees him for weeks on end, and hundreds of people are killed in the streets, and then you ask for compromise?
Excuse me, before we continue, you said I worked for Mr. Morsi. I never worked for Mr. Morsi.
This is what my researchers tell me. You were a member of Morsi's Shura Council, but you later resigned to join the Tamarot movement.
It was not Mr. Morsi's Shura Council. It is a government institution. It is called the Parliament.
My apologies. My researchers have given me incorrect information. I apologize, and I correct that you have never worked for Mohamed Morsi.
No. You have to repeat it. I was a senator who resigned.
You were a senator and you resigned. Our apologies. France 24 apologizes. We've been given the wrong information. Please continue and respond to the point.
I can't believe that you can say a thing like that. I mean, I was a member of the opposition inside.
How can you say that? We've clarified it now. I think it's been clarified. We have apologized several times now. If you would now please respond to the point.
What is your question?
The point made by Moayed Harb, he says, how can the Muslim Brotherhood or supporters of Mohamed Morsi now be asked to engage in the political process in Egypt when their candidate has been removed from power? Nobody's seen him for 6 weeks. He uses the words kidnapped. Hundreds of people have been killed hundreds of people have been killed in the streets. How can they now be asked to compromise and take part in a democracy?
Hundreds of people were killed not only yesterday. Thousands of people were killed during the 47 days. Churches were torched. Christians were brutalized. The population was paralyzed. Terrorist gangs were attacking government premises and breaking bridges and so on. So let's not go only to yesterday, please. As for the Muslim Brothers, they are asked to join the political landscape if they decide, first of all, not to have a party based on religion, and second, to follow the rules and regulations of that are set for participating in politics.
Just to know, if you were a senator, sorry, that's not democracy. You don't choose the rules. Democracy is that the people rule for the people. Okay, when we have a constitution, I'm sorry, but when she said the ballot's not enough, when you have one vote for Mohamed Morsi, he won, like here in France, for 52%, then another vote where he won at 64%, and there was another vote who has been cancelled at the parliament, where there was also a majority of Muslim Brotherhood. I mean, What do you want more?
But what about...
How can you prove that that is the majority? It's not a game. It's not a game of souls. You can't put the people in the street and ask to have the majority.
Do you understand that people like Marie-Ange Barbery were concerned, young Egyptians were concerned that Mohamed Morsi was trying to turn Egypt into a theocracy.
Of course.
He created a constitution, for example,
that
handed interpretation
about this constitution as a result of the 64%.
I totally agree that
but do you understand they were worried? They'd had this revolution, they'd risked their own lives, they got rid of a dictator, and then they feared they just replaced him with another one.
No, we didn't fear.
One point,
we were
they did participate
seeing in
in this revolution
action
too.
a dictatorship being installed. And if you want to speak about the constitution, we
I
can
don't
speak.
speak about the constitution. I do understand.
Why?
I do admit that Muslim Brotherhood did plenty of mistakes once they were in power. I totally agree. I mean, in 1 year, what can a man change? I mean, here in France,
Well, he
the
did
rating
many changes
about
to the
François
worse.
Hollande has decreased for 20%. Did we do a coup against him? Of course not. We cannot do a coup every time we have a problem. We had been oppressed for 60 years under military. They never left the game. Clearly, they never left. We never saw a president so superficial. Why? Because he was there and he didn't rule anything. How can you judge him as the first responsible? We all know that. Can you agree
We
on
can
this?
judge him as the first responsible because, for a start, with the constitution you're so proud of,
I'm not proud of. That's not my issue. My
Are
Are
issue
you
is
going to let me
legitimacy.
speak or not?
Don't say that what I didn't say.
So I'm sorry, but I mean, if we speak about the constitution, for example, in this constitution, he gave himself all the powers.
What
he had
power?
the parliament. He had
Why?
because of the majority. So
because they cancelled the parliament elections.
This is
Respect her right
just
to respond,
typical
okay?
about the state mind of the Muslim Brotherhood. You live in complete denial of what is happening in the
Please let her
reality.
respond.
You don't listen to the people in front of you. And when someone tells something that you don't like, you just don't listen to him and go for something that you have traced without taking the others in.
I did admit 5 minutes ago that they did mistakes and plenty of mistakes.
Ali Fatemi, you'd like to come in here.
Yeah, before I say something, it's not my part to get involved in this debate, but there was a statement here which I totally disagree with. Democracy is not about the majority. The test of the democracy is preservation of the rights of the minority. Majority rule is not necessarily democracy. Look at the Declaration of Human Rights, look at the Declaration of American Independence, look at all the Declaration of Human Rights of the French. The essence of the democracy is that one government gets a mandate for a certain period of time, but all the rights and privileges of the minority, the same government is responsible for preserving it.
Totally agree.
And therefore, I know that, in the Middle East, I am originally from the Middle East, people think majority democracy means majority. No, it absolutely not. Hitler had a majority, but Hitler was not a Democrat. So, but as I said, I didn't want to get into that debate. My main point to both of my young colleagues is that you both love Egypt, and so does everyone else, the people who gave their lives on both sides. There were also 43 policemen and soldiers killed. Why? Because they all love Egypt. But for Egypt, what is needed right now is to do something about its economy. Egypt is the balance of the Middle East. If Egypt becomes another Syria, we will have a world war. And essentially, what is happening right now, the Egyptian economy is in dire straits. The situation, because of the events of the recent times, has exacerbated.
26% of young people are out of work right now.
Absolutely.
I think is correct.
The amount of foreign investment, which is the most vital thing for Egypt, was about $10 billion a year. Now it is down to 1.4. Foreign investment is not going to go in a country where there is no stability, when there is no law, when there is no future. Therefore, I think the essential point that, especially the young people, your future is there, is right now not to really fight over who said what at what time and so on. To get over this very difficult period and build Egypt, do something about the Egyptian economy. People in Egypt depend on subsidies for bread and for fuel. In order to get over that, you have to build the infrastructure. the money that has been given right now by the Emirates and Saudi Arabia, $12 billion, is 10 times bigger than the so-called American aid. Even if they cut that aid off, nobody's going to care. I mean, Americans don't mean anything anymore in the Middle East, and especially in Egypt. They're besides the point. But money enough alone is not enough. This money is there, will last for 6 months. This is to be spent. This is going to build the country. To build the country, you need foreign investment. You need to assure the investors that this country...
Absolutely. When they look at the pictures on their screens this week,
and
they'll be more put off than ever.
This is a disaster for the future.
Omar Ashur, perhaps you'd like to come on. I mean, what we're seeing, I guess, is this ongoing struggle that's been happening in Egypt for decades now between Islamism on one hand and military strength or Arab nationalism, whatever you want to call it, on the other hand. And these 2 points are still further apart than ever. What can be done to reconcile them and move forward and face all the huge challenges that Egypt has?
Sure. First, this doesn't have to be a race to the bottom, because what I see on is like, because they did not, the brothers did not, or actually supported the army in Maspero and in Muhammad Mahmoud, and the likewise events. So we have to act as them and go even lower and cheer when they have deaths or when their supporters, which is what I see in Rabaa and Nahda, was much more than the brothers. It was the circle of the brothers, and then a circle of the coalition supporting Morsi, and then a circle of the anti-coup folks who come from various backgrounds, including people, friends of mine who unfortunately were killed yesterday. One of them is Abdullah Sultan, who was from April 6, went down on 30th of June, celebrated on the 3rd of July, distributed pamphlets to go down with Morsi, and then what he saw in the presidential guard shocked him and made him go to Rabaa with others. You have also so this is a much wider circle there who really were awakened by the bloodshed. And had no choice, although they didn't like Morsi, and although they thought that Morsi was an incompetent person, or an incompetent president, but they thought the alternative is you have the rule of the gun, basically, and the rule of impunity. And we're back to not even December 2010, because massacres in December 2010 in the Mubarak period did not happen in front of TV cameras and international journalists and on the streets of Cairo. They happened inside jails or in remote areas where nobody can see them. But this is taking us back all the way to November 1954, when Nasser's junta back then emphasized itself. And you had a part of Egypt wanted a democracy, wanted a parliamentary system. Another part of Egypt wanted a strong man with this charismatic skills that Nasser had, and therefore wanted a military strong man with his authoritarian rule to come there. And this fight, which was emphasized in February and March 1954, involved also the army. Part of the army back then wanted a parliamentary system. Khalid Muhyiddin, Ahmad Shawqi, all these names of the free officers who wanted a parliamentary system, versus Nasser and a group of the majority really of the Revolutionary Command Council back then, who wanted the domination of the military over politics, wanted an officers' republic, basically, officers above the constitution and above the state. And until today, we have the ramifications of that. You have very much a similar situation, a divided society, a divided Egypt, but this time the identity issue is being played, secular versus Islamist. And I don't think, to be honest, that identity has much to do with it. The constitution that of 2012 more or less had a few parallels from the constitution of Mubarak. And then after that, they added the Article 219 that basically the Salafi Noor party, which is now supported July 3rd and was behind the General Sisi, added an extra religious article there. And then additionally, also you had empowering the army inside the constitution. They gave them a veto over high politics. They gave them also a more or less impunity, so you cannot hold them accountable to anything that was done. And additionally, the military economic empire that the colleague spoke about, which is really a black hole in the Egyptian economy because it's untaxed. You cannot really trace its actual wealth. Has preferential customs and exchange rates, confiscate any piece of land in Egypt and does not pay the general treasury, have an army of laborers which are conscripts who are not paid and sometimes in slavery conditions. So all this is pretty much a hole in the economy and undermining it. And all of this was preserved in that period, and it's a major problem. But what we had is an actual institutions who trying to limit the struggle within the institutions of the state, and institutions who are trying to push back this officers' republic and produce what we hoped for, the dignity, the freedom, and the social justice of the January revolution. This was not successful. Now we were going all the way back to again November '54, when the army and the guns really reign supreme at the moment. The bullets are above the ballots.
Okay, Marianne.
I don't want to comment what has just been said. I would like to go back to what Mr. Ali said. I very much agree on pretty much everything he said. Democracy is not about the ruling majority, and unfortunately, we've seen that the Muslim Brotherhood and their sympathizers are not, so far, people who know how to deal with minorities. Since the events of yesterday, there is approximately 43 Christian institutions which have been burnt. There is, laugh, please. Instead of condemning what happened,
who didn't condemn anything? Tamarod, I didn't hear anything about them since July 3rd. I'm laughing because that's what Amn al-Dawla, the national security, did.
This is just not acceptable that you laugh to
it's
such
exactly
a
the same. It's like the people are like blind. It's exactly, look at what we have today. It's exactly the same comparison. We have 15 governors before yesterday who had been put in the politics system, who are all generals from the army.
So you're saying that the army are destroying the churches.
I'm not defending Morsi.
On the Muslim
Please
Brotherhood.
take him off.
How can you say that the army is destroying? Excuse me, no, I was the one talking, by the way.
I'm defending legitimacy. Today there is a system.
Okay.
No, this is just not a way of doing
all
things.
Right,
I'm sorry.
Marianne. Okay, let's pick up on what Ali Fatimi said, because it was very interesting.
So
look, you're both Egyptian. You're young Egyptians. You're the next generation.
Yes, we are both
you've
Egyptians,
just heard
and there is plenty of youth in the street who has been calling the Muslim Brotherhood. Please listen to what we have to say. Please come negotiate. Please, we want to make a better Egypt for tomorrow. We want to construct it all together. We don't want to isolate any branch of the population. But they have been saying no, anyway, we don't need to talk to you. We have our foreign spokesperson, and we've seen the visits of all the world leaders to the kidnapped Mohamed Morsi, which is a very weird thing, but anyway. And I'm sorry about the military attacking the church.
By the way, the world leaders you're
I'm sorry, but about the military. No, I want to say this about the military attacking the churches when it's been a month that Safwat Higazi is doing hate speech on the Rabaa sitting, and that then you have attacks.
Continue.
And that you didn't even.
I said Amn al-Dawla.
You didn't even disturb yourself to try to condemn it with one sentence now.
What?
What is happening to churches?
I have been raised in
and
a Christian
you've answered
school.
with a love. Do you condemn it?
I have told them. I called them directly on the moment. I said, "What's happening today is the worst thing to happen, because we have already a politic problem, and now we have a politic and a religious problem."
With all my respect for you, I don't care about your personal opinion.
I don't care about you too, but I'm talking about Egypt.
You speak for the Muslim Brotherhood.
I'm not talking about you.
That's what you say.
That's your problem. I'm not talking about Muslim Brotherhood. I'm talking about
let
supporters.
Let him respond. You had your chance. Please respond to what Marianne Babari said.
We are not defending Morsi here. I said from the very start, Morsi did mistakes and did plenty of mistakes if you want to. I'm not agreeing 100% with what he did, but I'm also saying that there is a system, a legitimacy here. If we do accept every time we have a problem to put the people on the street and then ask for the army to intervene, it will be a massacre every time. It will be a massacre every time. And the army also will have the possibility, they will believe in themselves as superior, as Ashur said, superior over the government, over the politician, over everyone. So he would be able to intervene whenever he wants to, and he never really left the politicians scene today. We did see, for 1 year, he passed 2.5 months to try to have his full powers, and we saw what happened, and we saw it in the constitution, which was a really big mistake. But we don't see what was happening in the backstage. There are always compromises on the backstage. I totally disagree with what she says when I support Morsi and I support Muslim Brotherhood. I'm not Muslim Brotherhood. I only support legitimacy. I believe that arms won't bring democracy. If they really want to, they bring Morsi back. They make parliament elections, and they ask the parliament to put him out.
But excuse me, you said you were in Egypt a month ago. Didn't you speak with the people in the street? Apart from the people who are in Rabaa, no one wants Morsi to come back.
I didn't say I want Morsi. I said if you want to isolate him, but with a
Can
democratic
I ask you why
way.
you voted for Mohamed Morsi in the first place?
Because I didn't want to vote for Shafiq. Of course, I won't vote for someone who did oppress me for 30 years. I mean, look at today. What's happening?
He does have a point. The liberal elements, the parties in Egypt, didn't manage to have a very strong candidate in the elections, did they? I mean, whereas the Muslim Brotherhood campaigned better, didn't they, in the election in the first place?
I wouldn't. If we want to go back to this part of history, of modern history of Egypt, I wouldn't go as fast as this. There was 13 candidates. There was candidates from the revolution, from the left, there was liberals, and there was moderate Islamists like Abdul Fattah, for example, who made great numbers. And altogether, these people are approximately 40% of the population, and the other amount of votes was divided into two. Votes for the Islamist currents, all joined together, not only the Muslim Brotherhood, and the ancient figures of...
But what about his point, Marianne, that how can you allow the army to step in? They've done it this time. What is to stop them doing it in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time? I think if I understand you correctly, you're making the point that if you're going to go forward from here and have a democracy, you can't have a situation where the army is allowed to step in and remove an elected leader for whatever reason.
It's not the army. It's Egypt is going through a crisis.
No, please, Marianne Babari is just finishing her point.
We have a lack of strong institutions. The army is one of our strongest institutions. Liberals, leftists, revolutionaries were in the street to say no to the army, and we'll go back to the street as soon as we'll see that the army is doing something wrong. The intervention of the army, in my point of view, is just a way of avoiding a bloodbath. Many blood has shed. We have lost a lot of Egyptians, but we could have lost a lot more, and everybody knows it.
It was not a bloodbath. It was just a walk in a park.
That's theory.
What?
That's a theory.
He said that yesterday wasn't a bloodbath; it was a walk in the park. I think he's being ironic.
I mean.
But I think Marianne Babari is saying more blood should have been spilled.
Yes. That there was plenty of...
Finally, agreement.
No, I do agree with plenty. With Morsi is not the best we could have. But the thing is that we have to admit the realities of Egypt today. If we do choose democracy game, today the thing is that Muslim Brotherhood had been in resistance and opposition 80 years ago. So they are really good organized. That we don't have any choices. So I think the big mistake Liberal did is that they didn't choose one person to represent them. They did represent all of them. It was too much. They had very good figures. Huh? Abdul Fattah had 17%. It was very good. And I was for Abdul Fattah. I thought he will pass. And then I saw that it wasn't the case. And I can't not say to one who is with the Muslim Brotherhood, please don't vote Morsi. Please vote... he will vote for who he thinks. That's freedom. He votes for... I can't tell him.
Can I just suggest you one thing in a very quick way?
Yes.
When you speak about democracy and about the fact that we can't change everything we don't like and take to the streets and etc., please, as an Egyptian person, you are closer to the Muslim broad way of thinking or any current, I really don't care. But just try to understand that the others in Egypt are not trying to take into consideration the criteria of a democracy which has been established abroad, and we are trying to make our own thing and stop using this discourse of democracy and ballots. And we can't take the street every time there is a problem.
Everybody asked. We asked for freedom,
we
for
don't
democracy.
Care about
That's what we asked for. We asked since '54. In the chart of the free officers, it was written, the Article 6 is clear.
This is just a
We want-
suggestion.
we
Just
want-
try to
yes,
understand
okay,
the rest
I
of the
understand.
youth.
We want a democratic society. And what can we do? We don't have a parliament. That's a big problem. That's the main problem. I said from the very start, if we don't have a parliament, the minority won't have a voice.
And
And
what
when
voice
in
did you
April-
give to the minority yesterday, please?
I'm not the one who gave it to.
Okay.
Don't be afraid. Huh?
Um,
I just
I'm
want to
not
say
afraid, I'm
we
Very
had
quickly,
the
10 seconds.
scheduled parliament elections in April, and the constitutional did cancel it.
okay.
So how will
All right.
that's not today. We don't
Moed,
have any voices
you're gonna
because
have-
there's only the army.
You're going to have the last. You're going to have the last word tonight. I want to thank all my guests, but I want to thank in particular Moed Harb and
Thank you very
Marie-Ange
much.
Barbery. I think both sides of the Egyptian debate are happening right here in our studio. Thank you to you, Ali Fatimi, as well, Mona Abeid in Cairo, and Omar Ashur in London. And thanks to you, as always, for watching. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the world this week. We'll be looking back at a very eventful week in the Middle East and elsewhere. Stay with us. This is France 24.